A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another RPG look today. However, this is going to be something a little bit different. So, as everyone knows, I'm a huge fan of Dungeons & Dragons. I played it in high school with 2nd edition. I had the original Dungeons & Dragons basic box set. Just absolutely love everything about the game. Now, I don't necessarily agree with everything that Wizards of the Coast is doing or is promoting. So this isn't going to be like trashing Wizards of the Coast. I just love Dungeons and Dragons. I just love the concept. I love the novels. I love the books. I love the rules, with the exception of 4th edition, but that's a whole different story. So what you see in front of you is the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual, the original 5th edition kind of core set. Now, what Wizards of the Coast did, which I wholeheartedly approve of, is not only do they have a ton of source books, which I've gone through in another video, they released entire campaigns in books that you can play using these 3 rule books here. And the characters can progress through this entire epic story, going from level 1 to 10 or 15 or 18 or whatever. So what I thought I would do today is I would go through each of the campaigns that they have released, from the one that I like the least to the one that I like the best. Now, there are 20 of them, which is a lot. There's going to be some hits. There's going to be some misses. I'm not saying that my least favorite are not worth checking out. They most certainly are. There are stuff in these books that is really cool. I'm just saying, for me and my gaming group, I don't think I would enjoy running them, or I don't think they would enjoy playing them as much as some of the others. As always, bad decision juice. Your list is going to differ from my list, and that's perfectly fine. That's the beauty part of this hobby, is we all have different opinions, and, you know, that's what works. So, coming in at number 20 is the Light of Zarixis, however you pronounce it. I don't know. This is the adventure that came in the Spelljammer boxed set. As you can see, it's pretty slim. I think there's only three parts to it. Oh, before I go into this, yeah, there are going to be some spoilers. If you're a player, if your Dungeon Master is running any of these adventures, some stuff might be spoiled. So I recommend you just go and watch another one of Plaguelands Media's videos. They're all awesome. So this is number 20. So we have part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4. Okay. This is basically an invasion of astral elves. And the players get kind of caught up in this huge spell jamming adventure. Now, Spelljammer, for those of you that don't know, is basically Dungeons & Dragons in space, but it still keeps a lot of its kind of medieval flavor and flair. It's not a bad setting, but it's just probably my least favorite. And this came in a box set with 2 other books, a menagerie, so that's all like the monsters and stuff, and then Spelljammer's Guide. It seemed pretty rushed to me, and while there are some good parts to the adventure, again, not my favorite. So that was number 20. Number 19 is Journeys Through the Radiant Citadel. So this is basically a bunch of one-shots, all connected by this location called the Radiant Citadel. And from here, you can go to different like multiverses and things like that. A lot of the adventures in this are kind of tied to culture, if that makes any sense. And there are a couple of good ones in here. There are some kind of standout one-shots that you could adapt to your own gaming world if you're, playing within the Forgotten Realms or you're running a homebrew. But ultimately, they're adventures that I probably won't run in there. But you do get a lot of them, which is a bonus. You get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14, maybe 13 or 14 adventures in that. Well worth it, though. Okay, next up. Now, 18 and 17 were kind of tied for me. Ultimately, Strix Haven was a little bit worse. Now, this is basically a Magic the Gathering. Strix Haven was a Magic the Gathering set, if I am remembering correctly. And this is Dungeons and Dragons if you want to play Harry Potter. You're basically students in a school. What I will say for this is, like, you play through the years that you're there, you can get like jobs and stuff like that. What I will say for Strixhaven, what kind of kept it off the bottom of the list for me, although it is kind of down there, is you get a new race, the Owlkin, which are really cool. I really like this race. But this is a great introductory campaign if you want to get kids into Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, I haven't been a student for many years. So if I'm going to play a game of Dungeons and Dragons, I don't want to be a student. If I want Harry, I'll go read the novels. If I want Harry Potter, I'll go read the novels or I'll watch the movies. But if you're trying to get a new generation of players in, if you've got like children that you want to introduce to the game, this is perfect. So, yeah, Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos. Number 17. The Wild Beyond the Witchlights. Okay. Now, the reason this is number 17 is simply the tone. It starts out at a carnival. I mean, the Feywild is great. Oh, and you get a new race, the little rabbit dudes, and fairies. So that's cool. But the tone is very lighthearted. You're at a carnival. You play games and do all kinds of carnival stuff. I'm not a fan of the tone of this adventure. And that's just me personally. Other people might really enjoy it. It does bring some good things to the mix. But ultimately, not a huge fan of the tone. What set this out for me was the League of Malevolence with Kelek, Skylar, Warduke, Zarak, Zargash, and Valor's Call with Elkhorn, Maricon, Molliver, Ringlerun, and Strongheart. The reason is because these were characters in the old Dungeons and Dragons colouring in books and toy line back in the 80s. And I had those colouring in books and I absolutely loved it. And I believe Strongheart does make an appearance in the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. So that was pretty cool to see, but that's why it's number 17. 16. Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden. Now, this is a little bit controversial. I know that. But, okay, Icewind Dale, for those of you that don't know, is where R.A. Salvatore set his initial novels with Drizzt Do'Urden and Bruno Battlehammer, Wulfgar, Catti-brie, and Regis the Halfling. The Crystal Shard was just a phenomenal eye-opening fantasy novel for young me. And I've always been interested in some of the lesser-known deities in the Forgotten Realms pantheon, and Auril the Frost Maiden has been one of them. So this is kind of set in Icewind Dale, and Auril has kind of gone crazy, and you have to have this ultimate showdown with her and all that kind of stuff. Okay, that's fine. The problem I have with this is it seems too difficult to run. You've got to take into account the weather conditions, so then your players have to be mindful of what they're wearing because it's all cold and there's too much you can do, and then things go all over the place. The end of the adventure, the showdown, is pretty freaking awesome though. And I would be interested in running this at some point, but there are 15 others I would run before it. There's also this secret thing where your characters have like a secret agenda, and with a bigger gaming group, I think that could work very, very well. But my gaming group is small. I run games with 2 players. So I'm not sure about this one, but I do love the fact that they kind of opened up the Icewind Dale setting, and now you can take things from this and insert them into your own games. So that's pretty cool. And Auril the Frost Maiden is awesome. Awesome villain. Okay, next comes Critical Role, Call of the Netherdeep. The only reason this is number 15 is because I'm not all that interested in the setting. I do like Critical Role. I enjoy watching Critical Role. But the setting, I do have the Wild Mounts book that has some pretty good ideas in it. But the setting itself just doesn't really appeal to me all that much. With that said, the concept behind this and the final dungeon, fucking superb. Unbelievably cool and well worth it. This is also on my list because when I got this, 2 of the pages were stuck together, and when I tried to open them, the pages ripped, and that kind of pissed me off a bit. So there you go. Critical Role, Call of the Netherdeep. Next up is Ghosts of Saltmarsh. What are we at the moment? I think this is 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 14. Okay. Maybe. Hold on. Let me just fix my math, because math is hard. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15. This is 14. Yeah, 14. Ghosts of Saltmarsh is a reprint of an old first edition series of adventures. Your players basically are stranded in this little village, and weird shit is happening, and then they kind of have to explore, and each chapter is a new kind of adventure. You've got the old like first edition maps and stuff in here. It's really cool. Like, I really like what they did here, and I could see myself running this for my players, giving them a base of operations in which to start from, and then kind of branching out. You've got bandits, you've got lizardmen, you've got Swegan. Things aren't always what they appear to be. So this one is really cool, but there are just cooler ones out there. I would recommend this if you want old school flavor in your game. If you want to harken back to the days of first edition Dungeons & Dragons. But I do appreciate the fact that they did reprint and update, which is pretty awesome. Number 13. Tales from the Yawning Portal. The Yawning Portal, of course, being a tavern in the city of Waterdeep. And this is basically a reprint of a number of older scenarios from 1st edition through to 3rd edition. So we have the Sunless Citadel, the Forge of Fury, the Hidden Shrine of Tmat or whatever, White Plume Mountains, a classic, Dead in Thay, Against the Giants, Tomb of Horrors, which is notorious for being one of the most difficult scenarios ever written. But there you have it. Now, these reprints are pretty cool. I do remember owning a few of these. Yeah, I mean, this is if you just want to do some one-shots or if you want to chuck some of these adventures into the middle of your current campaign, this is a pretty good book. Tales from the Yawning Portal. Okay. Baldur's Gate, Descent into Vernis. So, when Wizards of the Coast release a campaign, it usually focuses on one type of creature, which you will see coming up. And in this case, it's devils. And the premise behind Descent into Vernis is really cool. The players start out in Baldur's Gate, which if you've ever played the Baldur's Gate video games, they're just fucking phenomenal. Go and play them. Stop the video, go and get Baldur's Gate 2 Shadows over Am, and go and fucking play them. And then in 100 days, when you're finished with them, because that's how long they fucking take, come back and watch the rest of this fucking video. I'm telling you now. So the players start in Baldur's Gate, which is a city on the Sword Coast of Faerun, and ultimately they end up going down to Avernus, one of the layers of hell, so to speak, and then they're trying to rescue a city that has been taken. This is great. It's a great adventure. Like, it's really, really cool, and the fact that it ties in to something that happened on one of the episodes of Critical Role is just even better. So, this is well worth checking out. There's kind of vehicle combat and stuff like that, but, ultimately, this is the players in hell being assaulted by devils and demons and all that kind of fun stuff. It's a lot of fun, but there are better ones out there. Waterdeep Dragon Heist. This one is really cool. First of all, it's set in Waterdeep. Awesome. Second of all, your players interact with Volo. Awesome. Third, they have a chance of getting a mansion as a base of operations. What? Finally, there are 4 villains in this. But the Dungeon Master picks which villain the players are going to go up against. And their motivation for why they're doing what they're doing changes. So this has replay value, and this is great for introducing new players into the game. The reason it's so high is because it's a city-based kind of mini campaign that gets the players from levels 1 to 5, and this is just me. I'm talking from my personal experience. I have a hard time running city-based games. That's again just me. So there you have it. But this is still really, really awesome, and the players can actually interact with Jarlaxle, who is a key player in a lot of the Drizzt Do'Urden novels from written by R.A. Salvatore, which I thought was just freaking awesome. I believe they can also interact with Manshoon as well, who is a character from early Forgotten Realms lore. One of the head of the Zentarum, and yeah, so this just brought back a lot of memories for me. Really good. Keys from the Golden Vault, one of the newest books. These are just heist scenarios. You can insert them into your games. You can play them as a one-shot, or you can have the Golden Vault as like the players' bosses who send them on these missions. Every one of these adventures is fun and vastly different. They are all really cool adventures, but the one that stands out is Prisoner 13. And the reason it stands out is because this prison that the players are kind of trying to break into was the one featured in the latest movie Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. I thought that was a fantastic tie-in. These are some really great heist adventures. It forces the players to not charge headlong, but to think about escape routes, things like that, how they're going to create diversions. Very role-play centric one-shots, if you want to run it like that. Candlekeep Mysteries. This has a really cool premise. This is all books. So this is a series of short adventures where the players are either trying to get a book, they've found a book, they get sucked into a book, and it's all set around Candlekeep, which is this giant monastery on the Sword Coast. If you're familiar with the Baldur's Gate video game, this is where you start in the original Baldur's Gate video game. You start at Candlekeep. Some of these are a little bit iffy, but the majority of these are really fantastic adventures that you can put in anywhere. Pardon me. And they will work. So this is a really cool series of one-shot adventures, and you do get a fair few of them. So you get stuff on Candlekeep, then you've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You get about 16 adventures in here. They'll come with their own maps, things like that. So yeah, and the adventures scale. So the early adventures in the book are for lower levels, and then it scales all the way up. So that's pretty cool as well. Okay, I am putting The Rise of Tmat and Horde of the Dragon Queen together. You can actually buy these as one book now, but when they were originally released, and this is the first campaign that they came out with for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, they were sold as 2 books. So this is basically where we see, for a long time, Wizards of the Coast focused on one type of enemy. In this case, they started with dragons. You get demons, you get elementals, you get giants, blah, blah, blah. But this is cool because this deals with the cult of dragons, one of my favorite evil organizations in all of Forgotten Realms. And it has a really good beginning. You start out kind of escorting a wagon to a town, and then you discover the town is being attacked by dragons and whatnot. You can forge alliances with the Harpers, the Order of the Gauntlet, the Emerald Enclave, the Lord's Alliance. So you can kind of make allies as you go. Council of Waterdeep, things like that. And yeah, you're basically just trying to stop them from summoning Tiamat. Oh, okay. Horde of the Dragon Queen was the first one. Rise of Tmat was second. It should go in that order. Yeah. And you're pretty much got to stop them summoning Tiamat. You go through all of the dragon types. You know, the chromatic dragon types. White, red, blue, black, and green. Yeah, just a really fun introductory campaign that I would recommend to anyone that wants to run a dragon-based campaign for their players. Next up, okay, what are we into? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 left. All right, so we're delving into the top 10. Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen. You knew this was going to be up here. Fucking love Dragonlance. Nothing else to say about it. This one can be played with a board game, as I mentioned in my review of this. But, yeah, I would definitely run this for any group that wanted to. I would run this to introduce my own players to the Dragonlance setting. Hopefully that would get them into reading Chronicles, Legends, and so on. But just a great campaign. And I love the fact that it is a kind of side campaign to the War of the Lance. So you're not basically just experiencing what's in the books. It's a whole new thing. Really, really cool. Flying Citadels, Lord Soth, Calaman, just awesome. Just awesome. Okay, next up. Tomb of Annihilation. So this is number 6 on my list. Why is this cool? 3 reasons. Number 1, Asuraric, the guy that made the Tomb of Horrors. Come on. Number 2, this is set in Chult, which is like a jungle area, so it's vastly different to anything we've ever come across. 3, the premise. Asuraric has created a machine, sort of, that anyone that has ever been resurrected from the dead in the past is dying now. And the players have to stop it. Okay, that in and of itself is cool. However, the coolest, and you get all these awesome stuff at the back here, the absolute coolest is, when I find it, all right, come on, where are you? Okay. Artist Simba, the main character from the Forgotten Realms novel, The Ring of Winter. One of my favorite fantasy novels of all time. It is absolutely phenomenal. So having him as an NPC in this is just great. But Dragonbait. Dragonbait is in this book. Dragonbait was a character from the novel Azure Bonds, which was a fantastic video game, by the way, an old SSI TSR collaboration, Curse of the Azure Bonds. The Finder's Stone trilogy, Azure Bonds, The Werven Spur, Song of the Saurials. Just as a kid, these were some of my absolute favorite Forgotten Realms novels. Azure Bonds is still up in my top 5 fantasy novels of all time. And you might scoff at that, and I don't care. That's perfectly fine. I absolutely loved it. And Dragonbait was introduced in the first chapter, and he goes on to become the traveling companion of Elias, who wakes up with these mystical tattoos on her arm. She can't remember, and she's got to kind of work it all out. Anyway, Dragonbait is in this. I would have put this higher, but there you go. It's number 6 because there are 5 more that I like better, but Tomb of Annihilation is one that I am desperate to get to the table. Okay. Top 5. Coming in at number 5, Princes of the Apocalypse. I can remember a lot of people say, when JFK was assassinated, people go, I remember what I was doing. When the Challenger exploded, people remember. I remember what I was doing when the Challenger space shuttle exploded. I was watching a cartoon before school, and then it was like breaking news, and then cut to the Challenger explosion. So I even remember that. I remember where I was when this was announced as the next campaign. I was in Katoomba with my wife. We were back visiting my father. We were walking his dog, Susie. And I had just read about this on the internet, and it blew my mind. And I was talking to my wife, and I'm like, I can't believe they're bringing out Prince of the Apocalypse, the elemental evil, and blah, 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 blah. And she was like, could you just shut up for 5 seconds about this shit? I don't care. That's where I was. Prince of the Apocalypse is elementals. Earth, air, fire, water, the elder elemental evil. This is basically the Temple of Elemental Evil set in the Forgotten Realms, open-ended, so your players can go against whoever they want to go against, and it doesn't freaking matter because it's all here in this book. This is awesome. This is dungeon crawling to the next level. I absolutely love the fact that they flesh out all of the kind of elemental leaders, the weapons that they use, the runes. The dungeons are phenomenal. This is sandbox dungeon crawling at its absolute finest. If your players want to go up against the fire cult, they can. If your players want to go up against the water cult, they can. Doesn't matter what order you do them in, but it does affect the end of the game because the other 2 cults slowly get stronger. There you go. Prince of the Apocalypse. Really cool. Make sure your players kind of understand that their actions are going to have ramifications. Number 4. Storm King's Thunder. Storm King's Thunder is a lot like Prince of the Apocalypse, but with giants. Your hill giants, your storm giants, your fire giants, stone giants, cloud giants. Fantastic premise. Some great dungeon crawling. The big bad at the end is really cool. Not going to spoil it. But yeah, ultimately your players can choose wherever they want to go, whenever they want to do it. There is a flow chart that kind of guides the dungeon master. If they go here, you can go here, kind of a thing. But really fun, really cool, and giants are one of my favorite monsters in Dungeons & Dragons. So that's why that is number 4. Number 3, Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Now, for those of you who have no idea what the fuck I've been talking about for the last 30 minutes, there was an old 2nd edition boxed set that you could get called Undermountain. And Undermountain was this huge sprawling dungeon beneath the city of Waterdeep that you could access through the Yawning Portal. Remember a few fucking things ago? Tales from the Yawning Portal? There you go. And basically, adventurers would pay money to the owner of the inn, and they would go down a well and just see what treasure there was down there, and they would explore this sprawling, huge dungeon that was created by Halaster, who is this insane mage who hasn't been seen in a long, long time. There is a city down there called Skullport, Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage is kind of the follow-up to Waterdeep Dragon Heist, but you literally have all of the levels of Undermountain. And you can see like huge sprawling maps. This is dungeon crawling at its absolute finest. The Lost Level, it's all here. What's this level? Maze level. And the players can actually get quests, so they can go down, complete a quest, come back up, get a reward. Go back down, complete a quest, come back up, get a reward. This is dungeon crawling at its absolute fucking pinnacle. And I love it. You can take some of the levels and just transport them in your homebrew if you want. Oh, this level's got like minotaurs fighting dark elves. I'll chuck that in my campaign. But if you want the entire campaign to be just your players dungeon crawling, this is the one for you. Absolute gold. Love it. Number 2, Out of the Abyss. Okay, this ties in with an R.A. Salvatore novel where the demon lords have basically broken out of the abyss and are roaming the Underdark. This begins with your players being captured by drow, dark elves, and they ultimately have to find a way to break out of this prison. They adventure through the Underdark. You can actually meet Brunor Battlehammer, and you're trying to find a way to basically get rid of these demon lords and demon lords are supremely powerful. This whole thing is pretty much set in the Underdark, which is like the caves underneath Faerun. There is, however, one point in this adventure where if you happen to roll on this particular table, you start the whole thing again, but you have all of your memories, weapons, items, and all of that, which to me just is insanely cool. You can see Demogorgon on the cover here. Out of the Abyss was awesome because you do meet characters from books that I've read that give you the stats for the Demon Lords. So these are Demon Lords like Baphomet, Demogorgon, Fraz Urblu, Grazit, Jubilex, my absolute favorite, Orcus, the Demon Lord of Undead, Yinogu, the Demon Lord of the Gnolls, Zugdmoy, the Demon Lord of Fungus, and things like that. So they're all in here. A supremely fun adventure, and it starts out very roleplay heavy, which I always appreciate. Number 2, Out of the Abyss. Number 1, to nobody's surprise, Curse of Strahd. Now, Strahd von Zarovich was introduced in a first edition adventure called Ravenloft. He is a tragic villain, a flawed villain, one of the most popular villains in Dungeons & Dragons. They created the Ravenloft campaign setting, which basically takes... So the villains are so evil, they get taken by these things called the Dark Powers, and they're given a domain to rule, but they can never leave the domain, and there's always a curse that kind of keeps them there. So Strahd rules the land of Barovia from Castle Ravenloft, and there are other domains. In 5th edition, they brought out Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, so that kind of details this. But Curse of Strahd has the players entering Barovia and having to kind of work out how to leave. What's great about this, one of the key things that stands out about this is this fortune-telling system. So, Tome of Strahd, the holy symbol of Ravenloft, Sun Sword, Strahd's enemy, and Strahd himself. So you will lay cards out on the table as you're playing in this formation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And depending on what that card is, the location of, for example, the Tome of Strahd. So you lay out number 1. And it will be a different location each time you do it. So this has replay value. So let's say the players want to know where the Tome of Strahd is, and they put down a 4 of stars. I see a fallen house guarded by a great stone dragon. Look to the highest peak, and then the treasure is in Chapter 7, Area Q53. And so the players know. So the players have to kind of remember what that fortune told them and where they meet Strahd and all things like this. This is very sandboxy, very open-ended. It's just a phenomenally presented campaign that the first time you play through it with your characters, with your players, they're not going to see everything. Then the next time they play, they might go to different places. The treasure might be somewhere different. Strahd might be somewhere different. This has so much replay value that it is well worth checking out. Plus, Ravenloft is one of the greatest campaign settings. So, back in the day with 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons, they had a lot of different campaign settings. They had Forgotten Realms, Dragonlance, Greyhawk. They had, Ravenloft. They had Planescape, which is coming out soon. And so you could kind of pick and choose what you wanted. Spelljammer was kind of my least favorite, but that's on me. 5th edition has kind of stuck with Faerun as the main kind of hub. They do have a couple of others. They got some Magic the Gathering settings like Theros and whatnot. But Faerun has kind of been the main one. So when they release a book like Call of Netherdeep or Ravenloft, I kind of get a bit excited. Let me just move that over. So yeah, that has been the 20 adventure books, campaigns if you want to call them, for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, subscribe, leave a comment. But most importantly, everybody, please stay safe. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And I'll see you in the next video.